Dear viewers and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the panel discussion, Future Ready Digital Ecosystem for Central Government, State Governments and Local Governments as part of second edition of ET Government Digitech Conclave 2021. Digital India is a campaign launched by the Government of India in order to ensure the government services are made available to the citizens electronically by improved online infrastructure and by increasing internet connectivity, making the country digitally empowered in the field of technology. The initiative includes plans to connect rural areas with high-speed internet networks. It consists of three components: the development of secure and stable digital infrastructure, delivering government services digitally, and universal digital literacy. With India aiming to develop itself as a $1 trillion digital economy by 2025, it is needed that we develop an equitable and effective future-ready digital ecosystem by continuous skill development, increased access, and affordability of digital technologies. On behalf of ET Government, I, Arpit Gupta, welcome our esteemed panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, to lead the panel, I am joined by eminent leaders. I welcome Dr. Dinesh Kumar Tyagi, Managing Director, CSC E-Governance Services India Limited. Shri Chanchal Kumar, Principal Secretary to Chief Minister, Government of Bihar. Shri Nand Kumaran, Managing Director, Madhya Pradesh State Electronics Development Corporation and Chief Executive Officer, Madhya Pradesh Agency for Promotion of Information Technology, Government of Madhya Pradesh. Shri Manoj Kumar Mishra, Secretary, Department of Electronics and IT, Government of Odisha. Dr. B. Sundar, Special Secretary, Department of Information Technology, Electronics and Communications, Government of Andhra Pradesh. Shri Kumar Vineet, Special Secretary, IT and Electronics Department, Government of Uttar Pradesh and Managing Director, UP DESCO. Shri Amit Sharma, Chief Executive Officer, Jammu and Kashmir E-Governance Agency, Department of Information and Technology, UT of Jammu and Kashmir. I am also joined by two eminent industry leaders, Shri D.K. Das, Executive Vice President and Head Government Business, Axis Bank, and Shri Mukesh Mehta, Head Government Vertical, Red Hat. I welcome all the eminent panelists and let me begin the discussion. My first question to you, Dr. Dinesh Kumar Tyagi, is financial year 2020 and 2021 has been a transformational year for India's digital transformation. How significant is the role of CSCs in the overall vision and growth of Digital India? Which are the outstanding outcomes so far, part of the CSC 2.0 scheme? Over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting us. And the year which you mentioned is actually has a lot of challenges because of COVID, but also thrown large number of opportunities, especially in the digital space. The COVID actually became a boon for enhancement of digital transaction, empowering communities, and also enabling to do digital transactions. Maybe there was no option for many large number segment of society, so they started using digital tools and technology for getting services. So it's been a great year for purpose of CSC. Let me share with you that the Common Service Center, despite the lockdown and despite the restrictions on not opening in many locations in the first phase and the second phase of COVID, the number of transactions which in the CSC ecosystem has actually almost doubled, both in terms of the physical number and as also in the amount. So there has been a significant growth, 100% growth during the COVID time. Itself it shows that the appetite for the citizenry to use digital tools and technology to enable and empower themselves is phenomenal. If you can create a space for them, I think the COVID really helped us in trying creating a space in that manner. We have done phenomenal work in many spheres of telemedicine, tele-agriculture, tele-animal husbandry, tele-law. So most of these services which you have never thought of that you can actually do a consult through a tele system, through a video conferencing application system, has been now enabled. And they've been enabled both by the government. Government has been, of course, playing a very proactive role in trying and doing the same thing and saying almost all the services of government can be delivered to the closer place where people live. They don't have to walk into the government office. So the circumstances also actually happened that the citizen was unable to walk to the government office. So therefore, this Umang app being developed where there are more than 2,000 services now available, citizen can really get an access to them. The Common Service Centers being an assisted format plays a significant role of course, in three things. One, of course, is advocacy for whatever program the government want to launch, enabling people to try and get access to the service, and also helping them to avail the benefit of that service very close to the place of them. Few of the things which have happened significantly, the financial inclusion space, where 80 crore people has actually got DBT transferred to their accounts. So that's very significant, whether it's in the Jan Dhan account holders or Ujjwala beneficiaries or PM Kisan Samman Nidhi. Most of the people DBT has gone. Where do they go and get the money? There is no way that they can go to the rural branches, which are about 50,000 of the rural branches of commercial banks. You can't approach the 6 lakhs villages, can try and get access to them, especially in these circumstances. So the Aadhaar-enabled payment system has been a phenomenal value proposition, and CAC has done very well. We have done about more than 10,000 crore rupees transaction in AAPS through the CACs, and largely for rural India, largely for people who are either unable to go or did not have an access to that part of the system to try and support them for availing financial service. So it's been a great story. And of course, we launched some of the new initiative. As we go along, we can discuss about some of the new initiative during the period which we started.
Very true, Mr. Dinesh Kumar Tyagi. Now let me take the inputs of Bihar government. My next question to Mr. Chanchal Kumar. Sir, Bihar has successfully implemented e-district to ensure the delivery of citizen-centric services in a transparent and efficient way. Bihar has also shown a remarkable jump in digitization of land records. What has been the experience of Bihar in digital transformation? As we know, the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the adoption of technology in the state governments. Over to you.
You rightly said, if you see the population density of Bihar, the high population density, if you want to implement any government welfare scheme, it would require massive efforts from the government. And unless and until you use IT platform effectively, you will not be reaching to the poorest of the poor. So we use this opportunity. It has been an unfortunate moment that because of corona pandemic, many people have been left to fend for themselves. We utilize this opportunity to create many platforms through different departmental apps, whereby we gave them assistance during this crisis. For example, we used an app for tracking the migrants who had come from outside. We gave them some government money also, and it was transferred digitally. We also tried to map the skill of all those who had come from outside. This helped us in evolving a strategy and go for government reforms whereby we could utilize the skills of all these people. We also managed the quarantine centers during this corona period with the aid of all these apps. We are also actively monitoring the health of all these workers who are in quarantine or those who are patients who are at home. Our health workers, they go to all these rural areas, they take the temperature, they take the oxygen data, and we monitor their health. And this has helped us in reducing the incidence of corona. Effectively, we are now at very good recovery level of 98.63%. We have also redesigned all our beneficiary system, whereby we could give electronic service delivery, and we included all these people in our service delivery mechanisms. We transferred most of our government funds to all of these identified beneficiaries through DBT system on. And this has assisted and helped them a lot. We also did our decentralized procurement of paddy and wheat. So the record procurement, and we introduced portability, whereby using IT platforms, we ensured that farmers anywhere in the district, anywhere in the state, they could go to any place and sell their produce to the government. We have also introduced Wi-Fi system, free Wi-Fi by the government in more than 319 colleges all over the state. And this has helped many students utilize all these facilities. As is evident also that there are other apps through which we have introduced telemedicine. We have introduced portability of public distribution system. All these things have been of great help during this period. Although it was a situation which forced us to go digital online, but the good part is that now these are institutionalized. So this is there. This is going to be there for the people, the citizens of this state. Thank you.
So my next question to Mr. Nandakumaran from Madhya Pradesh. What has been the experience of Madhya Pradesh in digital transformation? Can you briefly share some examples?
Basically, the digitization journey, as senior officers from the Bihar government said, that e-district, be it e-district or be it EDS system. So different departments have their own schemes and certifications and registration processes. So the first way of digitization in government is that you just digitize the processes. You start collecting, make a form, and you start collecting forms digitally. And then you give the services digitally, you start giving money through account and you move to DBT. So we have also moved to Aadhaar-based payment system in most of the cases. Be it, say, we have a CM Kisan Yojana at the top of PM Kisan where we pay 4,000 extra money above 6,000 to the same beneficiary, around 80 lakh beneficiaries are there through Aadhaar. So that kind of digitization is there. You get certificates, you can download the certificates. But now, as we are moving ahead, and especially with the pandemic, people have got more appetite to consume digital services in government. So now we are moving from data validation of one application into the other. Say, for example, I have applied for a scholarship. My marks, my caste certificate, my domicile, my income has been verified by one officer. Now, when I apply for some other services, say admission or some other service, can I use the log which was generated in one verification process for benefit in other service? So can one application move to the other and validate? So that kind of applications we are trying. Say, for example, in CCTNS, we run the MAP IT Corporation where I am CEO. We are also the system integrator for the CCTNS, which is criminal tracking system of the police. So can we consume FIR as a service in, say, some SC/ST atrocity scheme where digitally you consume a data and you give the benefit through an Aadhaar-enabled payment system? Or in a prison, if somebody is to get something, can that be connected to a high court thing? So that is second way. Third is where we are trying to work is, say, suppose Girdavari, which we call the crop that has been sown in a field. So when you sow a crop in a field, there used to be a log, a paper log was created. Now we have made it digital, it's done by the Patwari online, even the farmers can declare on their own. So can that data be used for registration in a public procurement system? MP has one of the largest procurement systems in the country. So that data where there is Aadhaar and land and crop integrated, can we push that information to the crop to the procurement system? And based on the eligibility of the land and the acreage, can you push it to the procurement engine wherein when the procurement is done, the payment subsequently is sent to the person. So these kind of integration of agriculture data, land revenue data, and procurement system, that is the area where we are trying to work. And as you know, there is a problem of matching the masters, matching name, because there are legacy issues, some applications are on LGD code, some are not. So those kind of things that are issuing. The project that you mentioned, we call it a command control system to monitor disasters or monitor any events. So for example, we have a situation room where Chief Minister sits with his team of officials, or any minister or principal secretary can sit, and he is connected to 16 digital feeds. He can see sitting there which dial 100 vehicle or say which police vehicle is moving in which place. On the same screen, he can see 108 movement. He can see various CCTV installations of smart TV or traffic and all that on the same location. Then he can have DC on an open platforms like Google, Zoom, or anything right up to the person on the ground. He can see the drone feed if somebody is flying a drone and sending a digital feed. So he has various ways to collect input and he can give instructions. He can monitor various GIS-enabled applications. And then districts can do the same in their respective districts. That is one area, maybe in 2 to 3 years, we build up some data on backend to help decision making further in those directions. So it's quite an exciting phase, especially COVID has helped us a lot in consuming digital services, whether it is government offices, whether it is people, citizens, and in general, the ecosystem has strengthened in COVID, one of the positive fallout of this. So we are very excited about this journey.
So my next question to Mr. Manoj Kumar Mishra, who heads the IT department in the government of Odisha. Mr. Mishra, the Department of Electronics and IT, Government of Odisha is giving an impetus to the Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik's Vision 5T program. Mo Sarkar has been one of the leading examples of service delivery where the dignity aspect of service has been underlined. How has been the states priced with next generation technologies to improve public service delivery? Over to you.
It is in the 2019 when the present government came into being again. Honorable CM Sri Naveen Patnaik announced the 5T Charter. If you see the essence of 5T Charter, it is use of technology to reduce time to deliver the services to people in a manner in which it will be transformational, not only incremental. So while taking that cue from Honorable CM, each department, almost 44 departments and numerous directories under them, they went through a process of business process reengineering. So you know that you working in this space, you know that since last 15, 20 years, we have been talking about digital governance, e-governance and all of that. But we also know that the services that we have been providing before had not been end-to-end. So in some sense, some of the services application can be online. You have to go and do the physical payment. In some services, you actually have to go back to get the certificate from the Tahsildar. So, but if you see the total gamut, the entire process were not in many services were end-to-end. So this is what we tried to do. Almost 410 services were digitized from end-to-end, not partial. So the experience of service delivery is quicker and transformational. So that is what we took it from the cue that Honorable CM gave us. And as you stated, how do we know the effect of the digitization that we have done? Mo Sarkar is the kasauti against which we have tried to measure our delivery. So what we do is instead of waiting for people to put grievances, which is normally we do in various governments, we have gone the other way around. We chase citizens who have come to our building, taken our services. Starting from the lower government to highest, that is Honorable CM, he himself makes 10 calls a day to randomly people who have taken government services to find out how has the experience been. So you would not believe when you do such exercises in police stations, how much transformational change happens on behavior and how much it impacts positively to people. I think going forward, when we are talking about big scale changes, we are not talking about technology anymore. We are talking about result coming out of use of technology. So that is where the big pie lie going forward. I hope I have been able to answer your question.
My next question to Dr. B. Sundar from Andhra Pradesh. Mr. Sundar, Andhra Pradesh has the distinction of being the first state to roll out e-governance initiatives. Can you give us the latest updates on digital transformation taking place in the state?
We have also invested quite heavily in our digital governance journey, and we brought in MeSeva. We let the departments do their own innovation. We had civil supplies coming up with other-based methods of transforming pensions, with other-based methods for delivering food and civil supplies. We even had digital transformations in the excise department, which is one of the biggest earners of revenue for the government. All that said and done, where we faltered was being able to deliver the service free of cost, the digital service free of cost to the citizen. So with this perhaps vision in mind, 2 years back, we started with the journey of Gram Sachivalayam, Ward Sachivalayam. There, it was of course a completely politically different solution, because at the grassroots, you have political parties coming into the picture. And in states like AP and several other states, where local regional parties offer governance, the equations become somewhat more complicated. So the objective here was now to offer, the challenge here was to offer the same digital services at a highly economical cost, while at the same time making the digital transformation a big income earner for the rural households. So with this vision, the recruitment for nearly 4 to 5 lakhs of local youth into the Gram Sachivalayam, which was an online hybrid solution for delivering digital journey, began. So in that, we have the Citizen Kiosk Center. We also have 12 to 13 officers of important government departments like environment, irrigation, health, revenue department, backward classes. All the department officials also sit in a secretariat and they deliver services not only digitally, but also have a system where they can visit every household and deliver the services on demand. It had its own teething problems, but being a part of the IT department, both in the earlier as well as in the later phases, where in the earlier phase, we were all out for digital solutions. But in the later phase, we also realized that providing the human factor a more important place in the digital solution. This also had a good success. Coming to talk about technologies, our earlier digital journey was based on at least the citizens part was completely based on the .NET partially licensed format. We also had other open source technologies to reduce the cost. In between, we also toyed with an expensive proprietary technology for complete backend integration, but that was a partial success. So we again reverted back to open source technologies and open source solutions to reduce the cost for the government. In the same vein, we also went about enlarging our infrastructure, our IT infrastructure, which is, we went by the textbook model, where we also have our primary data center, not on the cloud entirely, but with a mix of cloud and on-prem, so that this has why on-prem? That's because of concerns for digital security, which vendors were not able to satisfy the technical committee. So therefore, the non-critical, the non-mutable information was hived off to the cloud, while the critical and sensitive information was held within on-prem. That was the model we have finally opted for. And now we also are in the process of making a disaster recovery site, geographically different. As I said earlier, we were following the textbook model. Now with this brief discourse, the trend I am trying to picture or trying to convey to the audience is that on the one side, we are picking technologies, not necessarily going for the most contemporary ones. The objective being to provide literally costless service to the citizens, because our goals are different. If I was speaking from the private sector point of view, my goal would have been to push one particular or a bunch of technologies because the commercial applications are much more successful. But from the public sector's point of view, we have the citizens as our primary focus, especially those citizens who are not able to have access to even smart and functional phones. And I won't shy away from saying that still 41% of our citizens in AP are without a digital connect, which makes the challenge even more uncomfortable for us here. And added with that, we are also in the process of trying to get telecommunication towers to every nook and corner of our state, so that at least basically internet is available for. Our vision is to have unlimited broadband at the Gram Panchayat level, that is miles and miles away from what I have told. Because right now, for 60% of our Gram Panchayats, we have just been able to give around 8 Mbps of internet connectivity. That is the status we are in. And I'm quite sure that much of our neighboring states too must be more or less in the same or slightly in a better position. Going forward, the vision, of course, is to bring in all the citizen services online. But along with that, we are also focusing much more on capacity building. And capacity building doesn't mean having partners for training at huge cost. It is through the conventional journey, conventional model of having libraries at every Gram Panchayats, but with a slightly different flavor, with conservative textbooks, with conservative hardcover books. We are also giving a completely digital flavor to the libraries by having all the open source interactive software development platforms at the click of a button on 3 to 4 high-speed i7s machines at every digital library. That is our vision. And as a short-term goal for our August month, we are planning to have this in at least 2,000 locations out of the 18,000 locations in our state. So thanks for giving an opportunity for painting this overall digital picture to the audience. Thank you.
My next question to Mr. Kumar Vineet from Uttar Pradesh. Mr. Vineet, Uttar Pradesh is the most populous state in the India. How technology is benefiting the state in enabling government to citizen services and managing central and state welfare schemes? Over to you.
The idea behind the economy to be developed is make digital economy 1 trillion by 2025. Well, gone are the days of Huzurewala and lordships and the steel frame. Now governance and service has to be made available on demand of the citizen. So that is the way we have to think about, and that is the way we have to treasure. So now we need a nation where the society is empowered and the knowledgeable economy is prevalent over there. So to make the society empowered, we have to reconstruct the entire platform, entire plethora on digital economy way in such a thing that entire services gets integrated and it goes on seamlessly into service area. So on this concept and on this note where infrastructure and public service delivery ecosystem is established, Uttar Pradesh has been working very strongly in this direction. Particularly if we see that delivery at the doorstep concept has taken up wonderfully. More than 300 services on CSC, on e-governance is there already there. We have already moved towards e-office where paperless concept should come into. Revenue administration has resumed a lot. Even Lekpals have a mobile now and they can use it through their mobile and they can use it in the field activity, and things are changing continuously. Health services have revamped tremendously. Now in UP you can get into the seamless, effortless services of power system. Then the municipal corporation system where you have the essentials like water, electricity, health services, death and birth certificate, whatever the governance that you really expect to be at your doorstep, we in UP are trying to have it. That is what we are trying to do it. In this pandemic particularly, you see, there cannot be any leadership without a technology leadership. So technology has to take a front seat and it can help a better relationship with the customer, and here customer is of course the citizen. So what we have to do is deliver the right thing at the right time. I'm talking about the concept because we are all aware of what digital transformation actually has to come out. COVID has been a very learning experience for all of us. So humanizing the entire brand value of digitization platform is what we are trying to do. Might be a faceless administration, but it has a human flavor with it. So we have got artificial intelligence incorporated, trying to get into the chatbot technology, getting into the blockchain technology to revamp the entire processes. Internet of Things are there. Then we are getting more and more into strategic partnership for mobile apps. We're trying to make each and every platform mobile friendly. So in this way, if I may conclude, that we are trying to make and generate an ecosystem which is going to be user friendly, which is going to be citizen friendly, which is going to enable each and every citizen and let the services be delivered at the doorstep. To add a few issues that we have been already doing it, you are aware that UP Honorable CM Helpline has done tremendous work in COVID. We have in fact brought it up to two levels. One level was about the COVID citizen-centric issues like health, like individual issues, like oxygen, like bed, everything. Second part, we were trying to get into the citizen mindset at what actually is required now, presumptive analysis. So we have tried to make presumptive analysis that way we made it one step ahead. And then we tried to get a feedback, that was the third step, about all the individual activities, all the citizen-centric activities, all the individual beneficiary activities that were happening. The direct pulse of the field right at the level of highest level of the governance. That was the idea through which we have been using digital technology. As of now, the entire process needs a very high level of connectivity. So we have our own SWAN system, which has been very effective in the Panchayati elections to make a very seamless communication. Of course, we are entering into high-speed internet because Government of India has already proposed it, and that is going on beautifully. Next step, the future ahead, we have the concept of Gram Panchayat system as well, where we are integrating technology first, and then we are trying to get into the mesh of all the services over there. So in a nutshell, to conclude, Uttar Pradesh has been doing extremely innovative ways in digital technology, and I am sure that the vision of Honorable Prime Minister for 2025, Uttar Pradesh is going to be amongst the forerunners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vineet. Now, next question to Mr. Amit Sharma from Jammu and Kashmir. What has been the experience of Jammu and Kashmir in digital transformation so far? What are your challenges on ground in terms of connectivity?
First of all, I would like to say that like all other states and UTs of the nation, Jammu and Kashmir is also going through a major phase of transformation. So far as connectivity is concerned, all across the UT. And here we have taken a leap ahead in many things, in the sense like we are using MPLS technology here to reach out to the grassroots level. That is, I would say that we are going to the Gram Panchayat level with the usage of DVC model. We are creating the network direct connectivity, and recently we got inaugurated the DVC model, in which digital village centers have been created. And now the power which is lying ultimately at the Gram Panchayat, at the grassroots, those people are getting directly connecting with the top officers. And this we saw in that inauguration, that our Honorable LG had a direct interaction with people all across in different places. And similarly, we have gone with SWAN implementation in major block headquarters. Again, the connectivity part through MPLS technology only. And there we got connected to people across the board at block level, and in which we again connected to this block level people. We call them here, we have created block heads, and at the block headquarter level, there were a lot of enthusiasm seen in that. And this is not the only thing which we have done, but here also we are upgrading the technology so far as the connectivity is there in the both capital cities, that is Jammu as well as Srinagar. Even both the civil secretariats, we have gone for upgradation of LAN, and then the state data center has come up big way. And let me share a very unique thing, a very good thing which has happened through JAGEGA initiatives here. IT department has done it. That is, we have in total implemented e-office model in the civil secretariats here. Again, this implementation is a little bit unique as well as a very challenging task it has, because we have two secretariats functioning in Jammu and Kashmir. One works in Jammu and one works in Srinagar. Winter capital is Jammu and summer capital is Kashmir, Srinagar. So what happens, like, people used to suffer a lot for want of work. So 6 months, a secretariat used to be open in one part of the UT, and other side it used to remain closed. But now with the advent of technology and with the usage of this tool of e-office, implementing it successfully amongst all departments in civil secretariat, now we have both of the civil secretariats working. Now place is immaterial. Even the officers have the privilege of operating even in the odd late hours also. Late night also files are being cleared. So this has been a little sort of revolutionary step. When we talk about JK and we say that the sluggish work is going on, people are not working. So we have left, you see, there's no scope for this kind of excuses. Now people are working, output is coming, thousands of e-files are moving in each and every department daily, and output is fabulous. And similarly, like we have worked, because you said specifically post 2019 August 5, you're asking me after the reorganization. So we have gone for upgradation of state data center also. Because when you are creating such big level facility, we are upgrading state, the data center out here to the maximum possible limits level. And we have just implemented a huge project here. The upgradation work is going on in full swing. And we have also created a DR facility, which is obviously outside, that is in Telangana, Secunderabad. RailTel is providing us that. So after proper bidding and all. So we are actually ensuring that the data remains secure, the data flows properly outside in the DR center, and we are trying to maintain the best possible services we can for all the things I just talked about. And just to add on, like to facilitate the public here, public confidence is increasing day in and day out. We are creating a lot of dashboards, like we have created COVID dashboard was recently inaugurated by Honorable LG. And LG dashboard is also coming up within days, in which all the schemes, all the development works will be live. They'll be displayed live for the consumption of the public. Then we have a very good program going on for public connectivity with the top, that is Awam Ki Awaaz. That is something you can just correlate with what is going at the top national level, Man Ki Baat. So it goes on live, and a lot of activities are being, public pulse is being caught in that. Similarly, we have some organized programs like LG's Mulaqat program is there, then that is also part of these initiatives. Similarly, we have LG's grievance redressal dashboard. Grievance redressal is happening that connectivity is directly made at the grassroots level through our technology usage. So that way it is spot redressal of the problems of the public. So it is basically the public which needs to be addressed and redressed, especially in post reorganization era. So I believe a lot of usage of connectivity and technology is happening this post reorganization, and to a great extent. But I can tell you that this is just a humble beginning. We still have a long way to go in JK, and we are continuously and relentlessly working to make it a great success story. And I'm sure in the coming couple of years, things will be much, much better than what they are at present.
Yes, Mr. Amish Sharma. We have seen that Jammu and Kashmir is progressing fast in terms of technology adoption. My next question to Mr. D.K. Das. Mr. Das, banking and technology are playing a significant role in governance and G2C and G2B services. You heard all the technology leaders and policymakers say. How do you want to align banking services with the vision of the central government and the state governments? What is the reaction of various state governments on a single nodal account for various center-sponsored government schemes? Over to you.
Okay, so thank you for inviting us for this panel. And on behalf of Axis, it's my privilege and pleasure to be at this panel addressing all of you. So fundamentally, there's nothing much to say as to how the bank is revolutionizing what is happening on basis of how the sovereign or the government is functioning. The government itself has taken up the step to move ahead. And we as a provider of technology, it is completely incumbent upon us to step up, deliver and perform. And that's exactly what we're doing. Today is also a pretty strong foundation day, I would say, when Minister of Finance has taken out the next part of the government business, which is now open for all private banks, which is the central sector scheme. Till yesterday, we had all the entire central sponsored schemes, which are open for business for the private bank, which included the single nodal account, which have been transferred. Now we move to a concept of the entire central sector schemes, which are getting opened up. Why are all this getting done? It is getting done fundamentally with the reason, with the vision that the best and the robust IT technology as a platform, which is there with the bank, be available to the various organizations to work with. Be it in the central government side and an agency part of it, and be it on the state government side, where we start and handle the flows and handle the business for all of the large sponsored schemes which comes from Delhi. Today, as you look, and I think it's a matter of time before a bank starts or functioning like an IT company. So technology, not only from the perspective of single nodal accounts, technology for developing various APIs in place, technology for bringing in solutions involving smart cities, your things involving national e-governance in place. Today on a single nodal account, when the fund flows, not only as a bank, we are just managing the cash, we are giving IT solution which could start from a fund distribution management system to a limit-based management system, where the secretary or the principal secretary or the head of department, at the end of the day, on his dashboard can have a complete bird's eye view of what is happening on the state. We could put in through APIs, grievance redressal modules there, various things which actually makes the IT platform very robust. At the same time, what we would request the various state governments, particularly when I have very senior bureaucrats from UP also been present and other places, is that be alive. Yes, we know that there are public sector banks and they have been at the forefront of working with this, but it is also incumbent upon to see and build and revisit our technology as to the platform, what we offer, which perhaps will be a win-win situation across from both the government side as well as on the bank side. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Das. Let me also understand industry perspective from Mr. Mukesh Mehta. Mr. Mukesh, the government of India and the state governments, as you heard, have adopted a lot of technologies, including open source technologies in its digital transformation initiatives. Red Hat, that started out as a single product company, has now become a whole product portfolio company. How is the rapid shift to digital shaping the future of governance? In which key areas are you adopting technology, and how are emerging technologies like AI, edge, cloud reshaping the governance for the future? Over to you.
Thank you for including me in this panel discussion. It's a real honor and I'm totally humbled to be part of it. Digital transformation is bringing a new revolution to the whole business of governance. The cities are getting smarter, all the important elements of services are getting digitized, and the pandemic has emphasized this loud and clear, that digitization is the only way forward, both the way we do business and the way we do governance. Digital transformation has changed the mind of everyone, be it government or the corporates. Government has focused more to bring services closer to citizens to provide effective, transparent service delivery ecosystem and under the Digital India initiative. A big change has happened over a period of time, where digital adoption, earlier treated as an enabler only, now is considered as a driver to achieve success. The government is leveraging technology to provide services which are contactless, paperless, and cashless, reaching the last mile with the objective of digitally empowering the nation. We at Red Hat, being the largest open source company, bring innovation to people by people called the community, working closely with almost all large e-governance programs. Red Hat strategy evolves around 1, hybrid cloud infrastructure, 2, cloud native applications and development, and 3, automation and management, thus providing a complete end-to-end solution to achieve digital transformation in government ecosystem. This has been adopted in all sectors of government. Some examples are state data centers, smart cities, Ministry of Finance, railways, NIC, defense, etc. Red Hat open source technology are helping central, state, and local agencies achieve their mission to serve citizens, respond to crisis, and build public trust. We provide the support you need to deliver high-quality services faster while improving the security, stability, and privacy of your systems. To achieve digital transformation, Red Hat works alongside government customers to make this as smooth as possible. We focus on 3 critical elements: people, process, and technology, by eliminating barriers between IT and business stakeholders. We help you shift cultural barriers so that your officials act more consistently and collaboratively. By automating processes and services, we help you codify workflows, reduce technical doubts, and innovate faster. And we help you modernize your technology to better achieve your mission with little risk.
My next question to Dr. Dinesh Kumar Tyagi. Sir, you heard almost all states have the same challenges. All of them are trying to improve the connectivity and deliver the citizen-centric services at their doorsteps. Sir, are CSCs able to fill the gaps in education and health sectors, which are affected due to COVID-19 pandemic in the current times? What are your priorities for 2021 and 2022 financial year?
First, about the connectivity which you mentioned, with the Honorable Prime Minister now announcing from the Red Fort that within 1,000 days, optical fiber will be available to every village. It is not panchayat, it talks about village. So all the 600,000 villages in the country will have optical fiber. Hopefully that issue of connectivity, a good quality connectivity at affordable price will get addressed as soon as these BharatNet access for BharatNet optical fiber is made available. The other point you mentioned about the education and health being addressed in the pandemic time. See, the pandemic time, of course, as I mentioned earlier, has a lot of challenges and how to try and deal with education. But in the normal times also, education has been one of the areas, not only in pandemic, because only 30% of the Indians, the young people, actually get admission to a college. 70% does not even go to the college. So what happens with 70%? How do we try and do that? The traditional system of education does not address. Traditional system does not address the issue of dropouts, which happened even at primary level and also at the higher secondary level. Very large percentage of people did drop out at that level. And these are mainly from villages. And there are girls and of course tribal and SC boys who actually drop out for some reason, whatever the reason can be. But I think how to try and address that part of the segment of society which traditional education system is not able to try and provide support for them. That is what the CSC comes to. CSC is an assisted format of service delivery, which actually try and help these segments of society, which can be then enabled either to appear for exams through the open schools, prepare for the exams, and also get all the facility which are required in a normal education through a digital format. We almost do everything today. A citizen in rural India can almost do whatever he wants in education. The basic education, he can do computer education. He can do also higher education programs of doing a BTech course or an MBA course or that nature. We have association with various universities now tied up where the courses can be leveraged. We are also trying and working out where we can do the emerging technology courses on artificial intelligence, on data analytics. That also can be done. You may get one student in a village, but if there's a student who is willing to learn, let's provide an opportunity. CSC fills up the gap that you don't have an optimum number, but you have one number who is willing to try and look into that part of the system for them. The health part, of course, health is a big challenge and will continue to be for some more time because of the non-availability of doctors or professionals for them. And fortunately during the COVID time, the guidelines on telemedicine were approved. That is a very good thing. I think that one of the good things happened because of COVID. These guidelines are pending. So telemedicine today is legally permissible and the doctors can do that part of the work. eSanjeevani is a classic example. So it's a great success. The number of one we've done. We do teleconsultation on all forms of medicine, Ayurvedic, homeopathy and allopathy, and give the choice to the citizen, whatever choice he has, and he can access those services which he wants to try and avail for them. This actually help and benefits large number of these women who are unable or are not possible for them to visit a doctor, even a normal doctor in that sense. They feel very comfortable. And since now ours is an app-based, the CSC operator can even go to the house and enable the consultation to happen. And the medicine dispensation also take place in that format. We're also trying with some diagnostics. So if you can have a diagnostic, teleconsultation and dispensing medicine in every village or every panchayat, then a transformation of healthcare will take place. So that is possible today. The government effort is in the direction. Government is really supporting all the ingredients in order to try and pick up that format. And hopefully we should be able to close that part of the work. But it's an amazing journey. And I'm sure with the new opportunities coming, new players getting into the space, education has got many unicorns today in India. Many unicorns actually come from education. Health is one area we still have to bring some unicorns in healthcare part of the segment, especially for the large last mile healthcare, not of the other healthcare of urban hospitals, but a last mile healthcare system in that sense. They will emerge because of the technology and because the process is being followed.
Dr. Tyagi, I'll quickly like to understand, since you talked about healthcare and emerging technologies. So emerging technologies like AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, cloud, they have a very important role in the future of governance. Do you feel that it has the potential to transform India's agriculture, smart cities, infrastructure, e-commerce, and mobility, transportation, etc.?
For sure, definitely. whether you call it AI or you call it assisted intelligence, see, it's the same. With artificial intelligence, at least in the diagnostic part, in the medical field, where there'll be always a shortage of doctors. So if there's a shortage of doctors and you can't fulfill the requirement, teleconsultation is a panacea. Teleconsultation is the only alternative available to try and address those problems. In that, the support system to the doctor who will not be able to get, the AI will play a very significant role in that sense. AI definitely is there. All the other other technology which you mentioned are significantly improving the quality of life, whether it's in urban areas or in the spheres which you work or environment or all the other part of the story. I think these technologies will, as we go along, there's a push being done. There are a lot of startups being promoted by Government of India and also the state government in these spheres in order to build emerging technologies which can simplify the quality of life for people. The objective of the government is one, make life simple for every person in this country, and then use technology for the purpose. Technology for the mere sake of using technology is not what is being done. Simplifying life of individuals, especially those who live in rural India, 70% of this population, how do we make life simple for them is the objective, and use technology as an enabler to achieve the same objective.
Thank you, Dr. Tyagi. Let me ask next question to Mr. Chanchal Kumar. Mr. Kumar, Bihar is marching ahead on the digital transformation path, and the best example is the State Election Commission of Bihar. They are now planning to use biometric technology in the upcoming Panchayat polls in Bihar to check bogus voting and duplication of voters. This will be, I think, the first such initiative in the rural local bodies polls in India. Your priorities for 21-22 fiscal year as part of digital transformation?
Yes, in fact, we are going to have elections in the next couple of months. You know, Bihar is having flood these days, so they have to see all the risks associated with flood, corona, and then accordingly design their systems. But the government was clear that we should try to improve the electoral process, and in that process only, State Election Commissioner, he has taken this decision to use biometrics in the Panchayat elections. Hopefully, this will be because this is the first time, so we are open to all the ideas, and hopefully the system will be a robust system and will take care of all the issues. So far as the priorities of the state government is concerned, you see, as mentioned by so many of the speakers, all the departments of all the state governments, central governments, they are individually designing applications, software systems, platforms to assist the citizens. As was mentioned rightly, the purpose of the entire technological advancement is to improve the quality of citizens. We should help them in the way that we possibly can. And technology is the enabler which we use to reach that situation. Now, how to institutionalize the system? That is the important part. We should have a unified system as well as we should have a system which is not a one-off example. So we have to learn to live with this situation, and we have to redesign all the government and financial ecosystems accordingly. The time has come that we should take proactive steps to reform our systems, to improve our processes using digital infrastructure. Digital infrastructure is going to be there for times to come now. So, in view of the large digital divide, it should be our priority to ensure that the digital equity is maintained. We should also ensure that widespread and trustworthy digital access is provided to citizens, and we are able to manage the risks associated with it. So, for a state like Bihar, where digital literacy is still less than what we would have desired to be, we need to focus on information, education, communication, and digital literacy so that they are able to access the digital infrastructure. And we do not want a vast population of the state to be left behind. So our priority is to have a system, develop a unified system, but along with it, we also need to improve the digital literacy of the population. So that is one of the core goals. We also need to work on the cyber security related risks. In fact, we have seen many cases in which these poor people who are not fully aware of the dangers of digital system, many of them have been robbed, many of them have been cheated. So we need to ensure that all our future systems are designed in such a way that these issues, these concerns are taken care of. As you have pointed out, and many other speakers have also said, in healthcare and education sector, almost all the state governments, they have taken many steps, many initiatives, which have eased the pain of the citizens. Because of COVID, this process has accelerated in all these spaces. So creating application is one part of the solution. The second part is we should also create digital infrastructure accordingly at the village level, in rural panchayats, in urban local bodies, so that these are of use to everyone. For this, in line with the smart city government, we need to also think of smart village. This advanced smart village could possibly include smart healthcare system, smart education system, disaster management support system, digital services to provide more literacy, digital library, all these things need to be done. We also have one more priority area. We need to effectively use the online platform to redress the grievances of our citizens. Bihar Public Grievance Redressal Act is in place since 2016. And we have had more than 10 lakh cases which have been effectively handled, and so many people have got what they wanted more or less. It's a very effective online platform whereby any citizen anywhere in the state, they can make the application, and a public authority is there to listen to his demand and dispose of the case effectively. So this we are trying to strengthen in the times to come. We also have one Janta Ke Darbar Mukhyamantri program where through this digital medium, we call people, they come here, Chief Minister himself interact. In fact, today was the day when we looked at all the health sector, education sector, and social welfare schemes. So if anyone had any grievance, he could come here. So these are some of the ways forward for us state governments, so that we take, not only we design the digital infrastructure, but we also take care of all the other issues that prevent citizens from accessing it. Plus, as we said, the purpose of the state government is to reach out to the poor, of the poorest of the poor, and to set up the system so that they are not left out. Elite people, elite population can always access all this digital infrastructure, but not the poor ones. So our focus is to do that. One couple of examples I could possibly say which we have planned for future. Smart prepaid meters are being installed in the entire state. We have one part of it because we were the first one, so there is enough demand supply equation. We are not getting enough smart meters in the country. So we have talked to many foreign investors and foreign country companies. So they are doing it. So we are going to be perhaps the first one to have 100% smart prepaid meter, but it is a long journey. We have also used IoT equipment in our Har Ghar Nal Ka Jal. As you would have, maybe you know that now in Bihar we have 100% supply of potable water in piped water supply in all the houses in urban local bodies as well as in rural panchayats. Now, to monitor 1,18,000 habitations is difficult. So IoT devices were used, and now we can monitor all these, whether these systems are functioning or not. So these are some of our plans and priorities of our state. And bottom line, I would again say, is making life more simple, more convenient for the rural masses. That's our priority. And we intend to achieve this using better digital infrastructure, a safer infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Chanchal Kumar, for sharing these initiatives in detail and how Bihar is actually all set to become a future-ready state. My next question to Mr. Nandakumaran. Mr. Kumaram, in order to become a future-ready state, how are you finding solutions for your challenges in aligning technology with the growth vision of the state government? How is the private sector bridging the technology gap and helping you?
As has been outlined by various speakers, I will just touch on 2-3 parts. One is, see, the schemes that we design at present, it is a blanket scheme for, say, PDS, or say for scholarship, or say for women or girl child support. But we don't give option to citizen that within this entitlement, can you choose a support system? If, for example, I might not need a bicycle, I might need some amount of money, or I might need some extra money in, say, healthcare. Now, as was discussed earlier, that the education startups are easier because the content is standard for a class, one student in a state, syllabus is defined. But in healthcare, every patient's case is unique. And so you have to have a degree and you have to have personalized care. Similarly, can you have a schemes because with digital history of the person, the digital ecosystem, you can customize schemes and deliver them. So we have suggested government that can we give them an option? You want to go with option A, you want to go with option B. So these kind of schemes we see in the coming future that the political executive will like to toy with and maybe experiment in different areas. A very important point was raised by my Chanchal sir that can we have a system where risk of the person is protected? Suppose there is a cyber fraud, then who bears the risk? We have eminent panel of bankers and people from the industry. Now you know that say there are say 1% or 2% cyber fraud in say banking transactions. I'm just putting an arbitrary number. Now who is in the best position to bear this risk? Should there be a provisioning by the insuring agencies or by the bankers that they pass it on to the consumer, and this insurance can be bought in market? So those kind of regulations are to be put in place by various agencies to support that kind of say loss of financial thing by misuse or by some fraudulent activity. One thing which we see now is that people are building databases. Now, how do you design an analytic platform so that you can use these databases to predict things when they are approaching government? Say, for example, now earlier we used to have 181 CM helpline. We have started calling it CM Care or say customer care for citizens, wherein the telecom service system that we have just to register demands and the backend ecosystem and all that. Now, can we use this channel to deliver service? Can you use this channel to advance people, give a forecast of problem that suppose that something is going to happen, maybe say a particular season or particular time period? Because now database is there for past 7 years and you can build analytics over it. So that work is in progress and we are seeing a lot of positive news that we get, positive information that we get. Second problem that we are trying to address is that once an event is preconditioned to a succeeding event, say for example, a childbirth leads to certain entitlement, those things can be sequenced and can be on demand basis you can deliver that service. The risk of not getting many times is not so high, so people leave that incentive. So for example, I'm getting a very small amount of money as a scholarship. People tend to leave that, but they are not able to be compensated in some other scheme. So these kind of credit points we are trying to set in, or say suppose somebody has got an inspection to be done. In government, a lot of services are stuck up to manual things because you have to do something inspection. So we tried convincing people, say IRERA or town country planning agency, that can you do a drone survey and measure the internal road with the digital system and then to avoid inspection? Or can you say on voluntary declaration with a drone survey, with the standards of the image and all that, and then we do a processing at backend and allow a waiver of inspection? Or we reduce the number of inspection and maybe on a random sampling you reduce the number and you reduce the number of physical inspection by the officers. So the inspections can be substituted by some data analytics system that can perform maybe certain drone flying or certain images or certain other criteria, and they act as a proxy. So these kind of things we are trying to propose to different departments, and I'm hopeful that in times to come, people will have some traction for these kind of schemes. But of course, the certification, registration, permission, and beneficiary of the schemes will get digitized in a matter of say 1 or 2 years in most of the states. But these will be the next challenging areas if we address the problem of connectivity and devices which people can have to consume these services. Then this is something which we see will be really doing in coming future.
My next question to Mr. Manoj Kumar Mishra. Mr. Mishra, financial year 2020-2021 has been a transformational year for India's digital transformation. Please highlight the Odisha government's effort to digitally empower rural India to make it more resilient, competitive, and future ready.
Arpit, digitization is not only making an app or doing the process online. In fact, digitization has 3 clear verticals. First vertical is the infrastructure. Do we have the infrastructure to roll out services across the state? I'm afraid none of the states can say with guarantee that they are able to reach out to each and every citizen through digital mode. So first thing that attracts our attention and must attract our attention is creation of infra. Within creation of infra, there are 2 kinds of infra that we are talking about. One is availability of internet to people. What we are doing Odisha is that the BharatNet phase 2, which is covering 13 of the 30 districts which had remained uncovered. We are rolling that out, and I'm very happy to share that we have almost completed 92% of the work. In another 2 months, I think we will complete. Each and every Gram Panchayat of Odisha will be covered by a broadband connectivity through optical fibers. So that's a huge thing we are doing on the ground, where the transformation in the rural India can happen. Without internet, no matter what we say, all digital governance lie within the boundaries of municipalities and cities. We would like to change that. Apart from the infrastructure bit that I talked about, the second one comes, which I answered in my earlier question, is that the services have to be end-to-end digital. If somebody wants a learner license, if he is asked to come to a RTO office to do it, then that is not digitization. In a learner license, you don't actually require to test the person's driving ability. You are just allowing the person to take the next step if he is knowledgeable about road rules, so that he will learn and then come back for a testing. So for that, you actually don't require that person to travel to the RTO office. You know how many RTO offices in a state people have? 1 or 2 per district. So if a district is 200 kilometers size, which many of the states have, so somebody has to travel 200 kilometers to come to the RTO office to take that questionnaire. Now, in that sense, how much money, time, and effort he is putting just to get a learner license. So this is what is the second vertical, that where we are changing the business process of the government. And by that, we are doing end-to-end. Now we have about almost 10,000 questions put in the system, by which anybody from anywhere will be able to take the test on the computer, and he or she need not be computer savvy in the villages. We have created something called as Mo Seva Kendras, which are the intermediaries available at the Gram Panchayat level. There they can take the test and go back in half an hour to their home, and their learner's license they will be able to get. So process re-engineering along with infrastructure. And in infrastructure, we are not talking only about the availability of broadband, but also we need to think going ahead. Do people have devices to consume digital technology? Now we have a partial solution in terms of providing more Sabha Kendras at the village level. People will be able to utilize that. But going forward, do people really need a personal device in their own hands, and can government do something about it? That's a question that we need to answer in the coming years. We are very positive. In fact, we are aggressively pursuing the digitization of services and processes. We firmly believe that physical rollout of services these days cannot be done efficiently. We rolled out something called as Kalia, that is an income augmentation scheme for farmers. And it came before the central government had its own scheme. But that scheme from thought to actual having money in the hands of people did not take more than 1.5 months, 6 weeks. How that could happen? That could happen because use of technology was rampant when we did that. Now, the next step in governance, in digital governance, is something known as creation of a social delivery protection platform. Now that is called as SPDP. In that, what we need to do is we need to map every citizen who takes a service from the government. And can we think of a time in which people, without having to apply for services which they are entitled to, can the government push services to them without they even applying? For example, somebody passes his 10th class. To go to the +2 colleges, he requires the caste certificate or the income certificate to avail various schemes. Then he will have to apply to the Tahsildar office, then go through the entire grind and then get those 2 certificates. And you know how difficult it is at the ground level. While we have made it now online, they don't have to come interact. So the possibility of corruption we have reduced. At the same time, the thought now is, why do they need to even apply? When somebody is passing 10th, why can't we push these 2 certificates into his DigiLocker? So that is where we are working on. Is a work which is very passionately we are pursuing in the government, and possibly in the next 6 to 8 months, you will be able to hear from Odisha that we have a platform in which instead of citizens chasing government for their services and their rightful requirements, the government will be able to seamlessly transmit the services to the people without even they having to apply. So that's where the next challenge and the next future that we are looking at in digital governance in Odisha.
Dr. Sundar, in which are the departments and welfare schemes technology is being aligned with the growth vision of the Andhra Pradesh state government? And in order to become a digital empowered state, which are your ongoing initiatives? Quickly.
With the current pandemic situation, if we are thinking of which departments are being prioritized for investments, not only in IT, but non-IT, then the top 3 departments that come to my mind is the health department, the civil supplies department, and then of course the revenue department, which was always hogging the limelight for all the investments for its own reasons that are well understandable. It has to deal with land. So therefore, the demand for online land-related services are always at peak, whether it is pandemic or non-pandemic. That said, the next part of our question, what will be our medium and future term road path to digital transformation? Yes, as I told in my first answer, the goal is to get all the services offered by the government online, but it is so vague. I am quite sure Government of India nor government of any of the states where we are participating now, we have no idea of the number of services which can be offered to the citizens online. We started with a number in AP, which was around 800, but that was long past. In fact, when you start digging into what are the different breakups, the services that can be offered to the citizen online, it was quite humongous. So we already crossed the 1,000 mark. And when we try to get the citizens' feedback on now that we are offering nearly 1,000 services online, do you think governance has improved? This was the crude question which we put to the citizen. And the answer we got back was very discouraging. In shorn of all the statistical language, the answer is you are just around 40% satisfactory. So that leaves me, all the audience, and even Economic Times to wonder that with 1,000 services in our kitty and the citizen just not even half satisfied, we are we have long way to cover. That is the answer I thought I should convey to this forum with the numbers we just have from our preliminary research. Thank you.
My next question to Mr. Kumar Vineet. So which are the significant initiatives undertaken by the state government in order to become a future-ready state?
We are entering into intensive digitized core sector of digital Uttar Pradesh in coming days to come. Now, one part that I may add to what you had said was the integrated grievance redressal system also. See, in Uttar Pradesh, anything that comes as a citizen grievance to the level of district magistrate and above is integrated into grievance redressal. It comes to district magistrate, it comes to commissioner, it comes to police officer, it comes to Honorable CM Janta Darshan, it comes to a telephone call from you to the CM helpline. Anything that comes as a grievance is integrated into the grievance redressal system so that we can track. We have mapped each and every problem to react to it in 24 hours or 3 days or 7 days or 15 days or 1 month, whatever the time of the problem or issue that may be or suggestion that may be. So that is one part. Second thing is the main core that Dr. Dinesh is also working on is that we have tried to develop what should I say, competition sort of thing at the level of delivery itself, because things have crystallized now. Now government, the delivery of the services at the doorstep, the concept has been there in vogue for quite long, and now this concept has crystallized. It has been absorbed by the society at the lowest of the level, at the level of the Gram Panchayat level also. So now we are trying to make sort of a thing where services can also be delivered better. So 2 common service centers in every revenue village is what the government has conceived, and we are working on it. In fact, we have achieved in a major Gram Panchayats also, where 2 service centers are there. Now we are coming to the third level also, enabling women. So in this concept, in this enabling process, we are trying that each and every secretariat, Gram Panchayat secretariat, should have a common service center, which is integrated through a high-speed network connectivity, which is being given by the BBNL. So this way, technology reaches the government, supplier is there at the ground level, and thus the concept of the delivery of the governance or services of the governance at the doorstep is being realized, including the women empowerment. We have also used Internet of Things, like Bihar has used this remote sensing satellites in their mining part. We are using IoT concept in mining, where we have in all major roads and activities, approximately 10 or 12 places, we have already placed big gates. The moment a truck or anything mining and material gets into it, we get an idea of what the material is, what could be the volume of material, and what could be the revenue part per se. So the potentiality of that system has increased manifold. We got it incorporated in May. We are still into the gestation period, where we are trying to get into the revenue model of the entire system, which is online. We are trying to get to with the transport department module as well, so that the moment I get the vehicle, I can just fetch the data of the entire vehicle, where is it located, who is it located, so that we can send the challan, etc. So once that integration happens, I really would let everyone know, and it would be worth appreciating, that this model is going to give revenue to Uttar Pradesh in a big way. It is not just the revenue part, it is the law and order part as well, which is inherent into the entire plan of events, should I say. So enabling citizen is our main motive, and once the knowledge, this national knowledge network crystallizes, in coming months, we are going to focus in a big way on education, because that is what we actually have to focus. Health, already central government is doing it, because the National Digital Health Mission has already rolled out. It is very ambitious scheme, I must say. So once the Digital Health Mission rolls out and it gets absorbed in the society in coming days and coming years, health is going to change like anything in India. So keep that apart, because that is already being done by central government. The state part is that we are trying to enable citizens as much as we can, and that enabling part is being done through the delivery of services, particularly through these common service centers, which we are going to see in days to come in a big way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vineet. Quickly, I would go to Mr. Amish Sharma. Mr. Amish Sharma, in order to become a digital empowered state, UT, I would say, which are your ongoing initiatives? What are your priorities?
As I've already mentioned, that we are going a big way in actually organizing a lot of things, especially with respect to enhancing the connectivity all out in different places. We are going to revamp our CSC model also, because I believe that it should have much more things like financial inclusion and those things. And like public connect is very, very important. Major focus after reorganization, as we have already mentioned, is to give a very direct chance to the masses. And with the implementation of e-office within civil secretariat, the next leg will go to different offices, which are in Darbar move, as you know, 6 months capitals move, which are located in and around in both the capital cities, and finally reaching out to directorates. So basically, we want to have completely paperless work functioning in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. And our Honorable LG, as well as Chief Secretary, sir, is very focused that we don't have to actually compromise on that. And we have to go all ends out to actually make e-services a reality in each and every single office which is operating in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir, which will actually bring a paradigm shift in the way services are being delivered. Because we all know, once e-office is in operation, so delivery would be time-bound, it would be transparent, like file movement would be, very, very clear. So this is one of the major priorities. And after this, once this is done, we are actually focusing on increasing the connectivity network using latest technology, as I said, like MPLS technology and those latest technologies, with which we can reach out to those areas which are topographically very, very tough. going by what J&K offers. We have those places which remain cut off many a times because of being snowbound. We have those hilly terrains where connectivity is still a challenge. So we would like to prioritize and bring those on board. And all the, I would say, corporates, all the technology leaders who want to partner with us are most welcome in this thing. And more or less, I would also like to add on, because I said smart city model, you all know, is working a big way. As a lot of colleagues and co-panelists out here have lined up and elaborately told many things like how they are taking initiatives. Similar way, JK is also going big way because Jammu Smart City project is already working thick and fast, and similarly Srinagar Smart City. So these two smart cities are coming up big way, and a lot of solutions are being devised and planned to have holistic solutions to the command and control centers. We have all kinds of traffic management systems are in place. Similar are some other kinds of initiatives we are taking in terms of making all the development authorities work in a very professional manner, like Jammu Development Authority, Srinagar Development Authority, all urban local body based solutions are coming up, like we are automating their operations. Jammu Municipal Corporation, Srinagar Municipal Corporation. These are the primary organizations wherein it is utmost required. And on our priority, there are many other similar e-governance related projects which are going slowly towards culmination, and now next phases will be launched very soon. So this way, a lot of things are being introduced, and we all have understood one thing, especially this post-reorganization era, that without technology, actually, we can't move ahead. And this way, almost everywhere we have introduced technology where it was not happening earlier, all the government departments. And public, we are trying to give some solutions in such a manner, like I am very strong votary of the fact that we would offer them in a very simplistic manner, like M-governance model, but that too in the most simplistic form, like if you can give them through some helplines and USSD coding, like simple Nokia, we used to say 210, that kind of model, in which they can just just dial a number and find out the solution of the problem. Maybe CSC can be fine-tuned to that level, like we can create that kind of model. People can order things, order for their certificates, and once they go to the kiosk, they can actually get it after paying a simple fee. So those kinds of things we're still working in, and we have already roped in, we have got some technology partners, some ISPs are already, they have come on our roles, like after proper tendering. So they are helping and facilitating us this way. That's why I believe corporates will have a good role to play, the system integrators in times to come. So that's what is the plan as of now for UT of Jammu and Kashmir.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. And you rightly said, technology is the future. So let me bring in Mr. Mukesh Mehta here. Mr. Mehta, how do you see aligning your three big areas that are hybrid cloud, managed services, and to build scale with India's public sector market? Your concluding remarks on next-gen governance, what is the way forward for digital governance in India?
After hearing the eminent panelists over here, I would like to conclude here that public expectations will impact the way governance develops and evolves, and technology will play a very significant role. States will have a clear identity, not just based on the policies that they frame, but also how they leverage technology for the implementation of their citizen-centric programs and governance initiatives. AIML has already entered some key sectors such as health, agriculture, and education, as I've just heard from various panelists. It will expand beyond these to include other sectors as well. Future decisions in terms of allocation of funds, selection of the government schemes, and even the way the governance policies are framed would be data-driven. Governance would have to factor elements such as expectations of different age group, sentiment analysis, using the new age social tools. Omni-channel experience would be the way forward. Open source softwares would not just be a technology enabler in creating next-gen governance solutions, but also would usher into new open thinking, a new kind of culture that brings new ways of working and processes elements. Hybrid multi-cloud would be the way forward with data residency and data security, a paramount factor of governance. I would like to add here, we all have observed how public cloud has had a phenomenal growth due to pandemic, and that organizations are even having a multi-cloud strategy to complement their on-premise IT infrastructure. While this is a good strategy on the resilience side, but it's equally important not to miss the governance of a hybrid multi-cloud approach. A multi-cloud environment comes with challenges related to data security, interoperability, disparate control planes, skill to manage such environment, etc., etc. Over a period of this itself could become a nightmare to manage. So our recommendations to all our customers is to think of a cloud agnostic management and monitoring layer even before they work on any cloud investments, and even more seriously when it's a multi-cloud scenario. Also, as a responsible hybrid multi-cloud solutions OEM, Red Hat helps customers in this very important area of governance and control.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. My next question to Mr. D.K. Das. What are your priorities as the government organizations are aimed at becoming future-ready states and organizations? What challenges and opportunities do you see for the banking sector?
So see, every challenge is an opportunity for us. We at Axis, what we have done is develop the platform in such a way that we can take solutions right from the disbursement side, integrate it to an ERP model, and then hence have a plethora of play starting from completely from one end of the spectrum to the other. So all it needs is for various lines of businesses to fit into this highway. So what we see as challenges fundamentally are coming from the government itself. I mean, quote unquote, we as a private bank and then the public sector bank. And my request to, and that's what I keep on doing in all my meetings with the senior bureaucrats, is that look at us from the fact that we have bought in technology. We're a long-term player. There's a vision in place, and we want to work hand in hand with the government to take it to the next step. For us, that is perhaps the biggest challenge that we have. And thankfully, the Minister of Finance has realized and hence opened up the government business for private banks. And we are bringing in all solutions at all layers, starting from a small smart city to an e-district to a complete NREGA currently now. So everywhere, wherever you have flows, wherever you have disbursement coming in, we will effectively not only make the disbursement seamless, but we'll also ensure that we grow, and we also ensure that we grow hand in hand together with the government. So that's all I have to say.
We have come to the conclusion of the panel discussion. While India is endeavoring to increase its share in the global manufacturing of mobile phones, IoT, automotive electronics, industrial electronics, medical electronics, and other such devices in the coming years, when we are talking about digital transformation, so we are not much far away of achieving the target that has been set by the Ministry of Electronics and IT to achieve $400 billion of electronics manufacturing by the year 2025. We know that the data consumption through the BharatNet optical fiber operated is in nearly 1 lakh panchayat surpassed 13,000 terabytes till June. So I believe these figures are amazing, and I'm sure integrated technology platforms have proven to be a great enabler during the pandemic. With this, I conclude today's panel discussion, Future Ready Digital Ecosystem for Central Government, State Government, and Local Governments as part of the second edition of ET Government Digitech Conclave 2021. On behalf of ET Government, I sincerely thank our guest panelists. Thank you so much.